£80 million, that's what West Ham are demanding for a player who is about to play Championship football. Let that sink in for a second. A club that just got relegated. A club that is genuinely fighting to hold their squad together. And they have put an £80 million price tag on a 21-year-old midfielder that Manchester United, PSG and Arsenal are all circling. Now, either West Ham know exactly what they have, or they are absolutely bluffing their way through what could be the most difficult summer in that club's recent history. And honestly, I think it might be both. Welcome back. I'm Bella. This is Bella MUFC Analysis. And if you are new here and you enjoy proper United discussion, not just headlines, actual analysis, hit subscribe. Because this summer is going to be one of the most important transfer windows this club has seen in years. And we are covering all of it, right? Let's start with Fernandez, because this one is genuinely fascinating to me. Not just as a United story, but as a football story. Mateus Fernandez is 21 years old. He just finished his first full season in the Premier League. 4 goals, 4 assists in 38 games, which sounds modest when you write it down, but context matters enormously here. West Ham were a mess this season. They were struggling all year, the football was inconsistent, the squad was unsettled. And this kid, in his debut Premier League campaign, was one of the few players who actually showed up regularly and gave the fans something to be excited about. That tells you something. When a young player performs in a struggling team, that's often a better indicator of quality than someone putting up numbers in a top 4 side with everything around them working. West Ham signed him from Southampton last year for around £40 million, and Southampton, credit to them, made sure they kept a 15% sell-on clause in that deal. So if West Ham sell Fernandez for £80 million, Southampton collect 15% of the profit, which on paper is around £6 million going back to Saints. Which is a detail that matters when you think about how that deal was structured and why West Ham have priced him where they have. They don't just need to cover what they spent. They need to get enough back to make the whole thing feel worthwhile. Because if you sell your best player for barely a profit while you're in the Championship, what exactly have you achieved? And that's the situation West Ham are in right now. They got relegated on the final day of the season, which as a football fan is one of the most brutal ways to go down. You're clinging on until the very last moment and then it just slips away, and now they're in the Championship. And the questions they are asking themselves in that boardroom right now must be relentless. How do we get back up? Who do we need to keep? What are we willing to sell and at what price? The Athletic reported that West Ham are desperate to keep Fernandez, and I believe that, because here's the thing about Championship football. It is brutal. It is demanding. And having a technically gifted, energetic, modern midfielder who is 21 years old and has already played nearly 40 Premier League games is an absolute asset in that division. He could genuinely be the difference between them, bouncing straight back and spending a few years in the second tier, wondering where it all went wrong. But here's the problem with desperation in football. When everyone knows you're desperate, your position gets weaker. The clubs interested in Fernandez know West Ham got relegated. They know that Championship wages and Championship budgets don't compare to what United or Arsenal or PSG can offer a player. And they know that a 21-year-old Portuguese midfielder who has already shown quality at Premier League level is going to be tempted. Of course he is. That's just human nature. That's just football. Now, and this is the part I want to think about carefully, Fernandez is under contract until 2030. So West Ham have 4 years of contract left on a player they bought for £40 million and are now valuing at £80 million. They don't have to sell. They genuinely don't. Unless Fernandez pushes to leave, which hasn't happened publicly yet, West Ham can sit on that asking price and dare someone to meet it. But the longer this drags into the summer, the more unsettled everything becomes. Players talk to agents. Agents have conversations. Interest turns into noise, and noise gets into a player's head, and suddenly your desperate to keep him stance becomes increasingly difficult to maintain. United's interest is described as real. Midfield is a clear priority for this window, and if you look at what Fernandez offers, his energy, his ability to carry the ball, his press resistance, his age, he fits the profile of what a modern United midfield should look like. He is not the finished article, but at 21, you don't necessarily need the finished article. You need someone who has the foundation to become elite. And what Fernandez showed this season in difficult circumstances suggests that foundation is there. The question is whether United are willing to go to £80 million for him. And that right now feels like a lot. Not because he isn't talented, he clearly is, but because United have multiple areas to address this summer, and you cannot put the entire transfer budget into one signing. There's a balance to be found, and Michael Carrick and the Ineos team will know that. What I'll say is this. If United can get Fernandez at a number that makes financial sense, And I suspect there is a figure somewhere between 60 and 80 million where a deal could be done, then he is a genuinely exciting signing. Young, Portuguese, and given what Carrick has done with Portuguese players throughout his career, that cultural and tactical fit is relevant, and someone who has already proven he doesn't crumble under Premier League pressure. That matters. Too many promising young players arrive at big clubs and just fade. Fernandez has already been tested in difficult circumstances and came through it with his reputation growing rather than shrinking. But I want to be honest, there's no confirmed bid. There's no official approach. Right now, this is interest, and interest doesn't become a transfer without a fee being agreed. And at 80 million for a player who just spent a season in a relegated team, there will absolutely be clubs who look at that number and decide to move to their next target. Whether United blink or hold firm over the coming weeks is going to be one of the more interesting subplots of this summer. Now, from Fernandez to a completely different kind of situation, because the goalkeeper position at Manchester United this summer is genuinely complex, and I think it deserves more attention than it's been getting in most discussions. Andre Onana went to Trabzonspor on loan, and I'll be honest here, I think most United fans would agree that the version of Onana we saw at Trabzonspor looked far more like the goalkeeper we thought we were getting when United signed him. He was commanding, he was confident, he was making saves and distributing well and actually looking like a top-level keeper, and Trabzonspor absolutely loved him. Their president has been vocal about it publicly, saying they speak with Onana almost every day and that they want him to stay. What's interesting about the Trabzonspor president's comments is the tone. He's not desperate in the way a club chasing a player they can't afford usually sounds. He sounds almost calm, almost confident, like he genuinely believes this gets done. He said he doesn't think there will be any problems in the coming days. And while, of course, a club president is never going to publicly admit weakness in a negotiation, there was something about those quotes that felt considered rather than performative. The complication is the money. United need around £20 million from Onana's sale to avoid a PSR accounting issue. And Trabzonspor have previously and publicly pushed back on that number, suggesting they think it's too high. So you have a president who sounds confident a deal is close and a valuation gap that hasn't been publicly resolved. Those two things don't necessarily contradict each other. Maybe there's movement behind the scenes. Maybe the structure of a deal, whether it's permanent or another loan with an option, gives both clubs enough flexibility to get there. But we don't know that yet. And until we do, there's genuine uncertainty about where Onana ends up. What I keep coming back to is the goalkeeping situation that United are left with if Onana does leave permanently. Senna Lamens and Tom Heaton. Now that is not a goalkeeping department for a club competing in 4 competitions. Alte Bayendir looks like he's leaving as well. Radek Vitek, who has shown real promise at youth level, is also expected to be moved on. So realistically, United could be heading into the summer needing a first-choice goalkeeper and a reliable backup. That is 2 signings in one position, and finding a quality homegrown option, which is what the club reportedly want for squad registration purposes, is not a simple task. I think the goalkeeping situation is actually one of the more pressing parts of this summer window that isn't getting the attention it deserves. Everyone is focused on midfield, on strikers, on the Fernandez saga, and rightly so, those are exciting stories. But if United go into next season without a reliable number 1, everything else becomes fragile. A goalkeeper affects confidence throughout the entire team. The back 4, the midfield press, everything is shaped by whether the man behind you is someone you trust completely. So whatever happens with Onana, and whether Trabzonspor get their man permanently, whether another loan is agreed, or whether Onana ends up somewhere unexpected, United need a plan. And from everything being reported, that plan involves an experienced goalkeeper who also meets the homegrown criteria, which narrows the options considerably, right? Now I want to talk about Vlahovic because this one is interesting in a way that I don't think has been fully explored yet. Dusan Vlahovic's contract at Juventus expires on July the 1st. He will be a free agent. He is 26 years old, and he is on paper one of the most technically gifted centre-forwards available in European football right now. Left-footed, physically dominant, excellent in the air, capable of creating chances as well as finishing them. This is not a player who has lost his quality. He scored a goal or assisted one every 117 minutes this season, playing for a Juventus side that was genuinely struggling. That output in those circumstances is elite-level efficiency, and yet, because there is always a yet with Vlahovic, his wage is the problem. He is the highest paid player in Serie A, reportedly close to £375,000 a week. And Ineos have spent the last 18 months systematically trying to bring Manchester United's wage bill down. Bringing in someone on that salary would completely undermine everything they've been trying to do structurally at the club. It's not just about affording it, it's about the precedent it sets. If Vlahovic walks in on $375,000 a week, how does that conversation go with Bruno Fernandez, with Kobbie Mainoo, with Rasmus Højlund if he has the season everyone expects him to have? Wage structures matter. They matter enormously at a club that is trying to rebuild not just its squad, but its entire financial model. But, and here's where the football logic gets interesting, Vlahovic is a free transfer. There is no fee. Which means United could, in theory, offer him a significant signing bonus to compensate for accepting a lower weekly wage. If he comes in at around $200,000 a week, which is still excellent money, and United give him a substantial upfront payment, that deal might actually be structured in a way that works for everyone. The club gets a free transfer striker with genuine quality. Vlahovic gets a signing bonus that reflects his market value, and the weekly wage bill doesn't get blown apart. Whether Vlahovic would accept that structure is a completely different question. He's 26, he has leverage. He knows clubs across Europe will be interested. But he also knows his reputation has taken a quiet hit from playing for a Juventus side that has been underperforming for the better part of 2 seasons. A move to United, with their profile, their global platform, their manager and Carrick, who is clearly building something, might appeal to him in a way that a move to a mid-table club elsewhere simply wouldn't. The tactical fit is also worth talking about. United currently have Benjamin Sesko as the focal point of the attack. Sesko is right-footed, powerful and increasingly commanding at the top level. Vlahovic is left-footed, different in his movement patterns, different in how he links play. They are not copies of each other. And in a season where United are in 4 competitions, having 2 genuinely different striker profiles is not a luxury. It's a necessity. You need options that don't just replicate each other. You need variety. Vlahovic brings that. Now compare that to the other options that have been mentioned. Lewandowski is 37. He is still capable of moments of brilliance. Anyone who has watched him with Barcelona knows that. But signing a 37-year-old striker on a serious contract to handle a heavy Premier League and European workload is exactly the kind of short-termism that United have been trying to move away from. It is a sticking plaster, not a solution. And Danny Welbeck, as much as I have a soft spot for him as a player, and obviously his history with the club, he is 35 and he is not the answer to United's striker question at this level of ambition. Vlahovic at 26, on a free, with the right wage structure, is a far more interesting option than either of those. The question is whether the deal can be constructed in a way that makes sense for both sides, and I suspect those conversations, if they haven't happened already, are very close to beginning. Here's the bigger picture that I keep thinking about when I look at all 3 of these stories together. Manchester United this summer have to build in 3 areas simultaneously: midfield, attack, goalkeeping. 3 positions, 3 different problems, 3 different market challenges, and they are doing it under Ineos financial discipline, which means the days of just throwing money at every problem until it goes away are over. That means this window requires proper strategic thinking. It requires United to be clever about how they use their resources. If they go big on Fernandez, let's say they go to 75 million, that affects what they can do everywhere else. If they bring in Vlahovic on a free but with a significant signing bonus, that's money leaving the club in a lump sum that still needs to be accounted for. If they need a quality goalkeeper who also meets homegrown criteria, that market is limited and limited markets push prices up. Everything is connected. This is not 3 separate decisions. This is one summer-long chess match where every move affects every other move. And I actually think Ineos understand that better than most people give them credit for. The frustration from fans, including me at times, has been about the pace of decision-making. But slow decisions, if they lead to the right outcomes, are better than fast decisions that create problems for 3 seasons. What I want to know is what the priority order looks like, because I don't think United can do everything at once, or at least not at the quality level they need across all 3 areas. So which comes first? Do you lock down the midfield because that's where Carrick's system demands the most quality? Do you secure the striker early to give yourself a complete attacking unit going into pre-season? Or do you sort the goalkeeper first because that's the position where uncertainty affects the entire team's confidence? My instinct, and this is just my read of where Carrick's priorities seem to be, is that midfield comes first. The system he wants to play demands energy, intelligence, and technical quality in the middle of the pitch. That's where games are won and lost in his style of football. Fernandez, if United can get him, fits that profile beautifully. And then you work outward from there. The Vlahovic situation has a natural deadline, July the 1st. After that, if another club moves quicker, he's gone. So there might actually be urgency in the striker conversation that isn't fully visible yet from the outside. And the goalkeeper, I think that drags into August, simply because the market for goalkeepers tends to move later and because United are still waiting to see what happens with Onana before they can properly address what comes next. It's a complicated summer. It's a genuinely fascinating summer. And for all the anxiety that comes with watching United navigate transfer windows, because we've all been burned before, we all know what it feels like when a United window goes wrong, there's something about this one that feels different. The structure feels more considered, the targets feel more deliberate, and the manager, Carrick, feels like someone who actually knows what kind of player he needs and why. That clarity, when it's real, makes a difference. Fernandez at 80 million is a gamble, Vlahovic on a free is an opportunity, and replacing Onana is a necessity. All three stories are unfolding at the same time, and where they land in the next 6 to 8 weeks is going to define a significant chunk of next season before a ball is kicked. So I'll ask you this, because I genuinely want to know where the United fan base stands right now. If you could only add one of these three, Fernandez, Vlahovic, or a top quality goalkeeper, which one do you prioritise? Which one do you think makes the biggest difference to where United go next season? Let me know in the comments. Because honestly, I don't think there's an obvious answer here, and that's what makes it interesting. I'm Bella, this is Bella Mufc Analysis, and this summer, we are just getting started.